Hello, and welcome to the Fire Within channel. I am your host, Valentine, and I hope you're all doing well today, wherever this finds you. So, I wanted to comment on my experience playing as a DPS Ritualist in WvW Zerging. Now, many players have leaned into the support variant, which offers a ton of stuff. Healing, cleansing, in addition to the Boon Rip kit that it has. I wanted to try a DPS variant, and to my great surprise, fellas, woo! Spilt cooks! Competing with the likes of Power Conduit and Power Amalgam, which are also doing well. Amalgam, still the strongest thus far for the DPS role in the latest X-Pack. My brother would say that Hollow is still the best, but that's for a different discussion. Moving back to Power Ritualist, here are some of my findings, and yes, I will have a build link in the description below. Let's get into it. So first, the new addition to Shroud 5 is amazing. Now, when I say new addition, I'm talking about the updated tooltip for Shroud 5 skill, because it used to just teleport you and collect all your spirits together. Now it does a whole lot more. The build editor does not reflect the tooltip accurately as of this recording. So here's a screenshot of what that does and why it's huge. After you summon your spirits, now keep in mind I'm running a Grandmaster trait. I'm running the Grandmaster trait Soul Twisting, which allows you to use your first summon spirit skill with an instant recharge. Meaning I can use the Spirit of Anguish, for example, and that won't go on cooldown, allowing me to summon that same one again. Moving back to the Shroud 5's benefits, you want to summon all your spirits first before you use Shroud 5 to get the maximum payout. The skill is very useful when your commander calls to drop DPS in a given area. This does damage bonus, daze, plus more damage, and it also creates a bubble to destroy projectiles, so you can kind of really isolate a particular section of where you're doing your DPS drop, which is huge. This skill, if done right, I feel, can make or break coordinated fights. Positioning, timing, and making sure that your spirits are all critical. Second, I wanted to highlight weapons. Now, I found myself using sword, and greatsword, and I want to clarify that weapon variety is present here. I found myself moving around with the group a lot, so it was hard to contribute to the fight if I was using spear and greatsword, for example. I'd be just kind of, swinging in the air. There was a lot of, ranged. It was a mixture of, kind of ranged fights and up-close fights. So for my ranged, I'd switch over to sword. For my melee fights, I'd switch over to greatsword. I wanted to hold on to my Shroud for when we DPS bombed, and Shroud skill 1 is just not a good source of overall damage, so that's just kind of, that's not something you really want to lean into. Plus, you're utilizing your life force if you're just dipping into Shroud, and then if your commander calls for a DPS bomb, you're just not ready for it because it's still on cooldown, yada, yada, yada. So I held on to that for those specific times. I'm definitely not saying you can't run spear and greatsword, though. Fact is, it actually might do very well. Axe and focus, also good possibilities. Heck, even dagger might even work. I haven't tried that, but you could probably try that and get away with that too. I will say it is hard to get away from greatsword. Okay, Gravedigger is one of the best buttons you can press in the game. Top that with the ability to pull, create an AoE blind and crippled with Greatsword 4. It's just a wonderful weapon overall. But weapon choices are kind of up to how you feel. whatever you feel you can play best at, or how your group moves. If you find yourself going up against, say, heavy melee fights, yeah, spear, greatsword would be a good choice. Or if you didn't want to use the greatsword, you could use spear, dagger, dagger. That might work to your benefit. There's no real gotta have this weapon choice, except maybe for greatsword. I can't emphasize enough that greatsword is just, it does so much, and there's so much utility and damage in that weapon. It's just a very well-designed, well-rounded weapon to use, especially in Zerg fights. So there's a reason it's hard to get away from greatsword. Thirdly, utility skills. Now, there are 2 skills that I would say you would absolutely need to have slotted in. Splinter weapon and the elite skill, I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, Zinray's weapon. I might have butchered that, but I think I pronounced that correctly. The Splinter weapon does so much for you and your team. The description for that tooltip is your strikes will trigger an additional strike on nearby enemies, and your allies receive this bonus as well. Breaking this down some, the tooltip does say fewer stacks are given to allies. So you get 5 stacks of this, and I think that your allies either get 3 or 2. You're doing additional damage alongside with those who you shared this buff with. Now, you can give them the full benefit if you switch the Grandmaster trait from Soul Twisting to Wielder's Boom. Did I say boom? I think I said boom. It's boon. Which grants your allies the full effect of Splinter weapons. So if you want to share that with your allies to its full effectiveness, you just change out Soul Twisting, which honestly you could actually probably get away with, and depending on your group synergy, you could end up actually doing more DPS and contributing even more to the fight because you're sharing all that damage. So that they would get 5 stacks as well. A really good utility skill to have in a Zerg group like that, because you're spreading the damage throughout the group rather than just whatever you can hit, that's phenomenal. And then Zinray's weapon, the elite skill, guys, it's an AoE stun break for 1. So those pesky CC bombs can be countered. If everyone just holds on to you get CC bomb, you trigger that up, everyone's up. Well, it's got a 300 radius, but if you've got multiple ritualists, boom, every single ritualist should be using that skill. And if you're not, you got a problem. I'm just kidding. I'm going hard on you for no reason. I'm just picking. Anyways, this skill also grants healing for the damage you've taken, which then, after you heal from the damage you take, triggers additional healing with Life Siphon and gives you stability too. Now, I've heard that this is likened to Tempest Rebound, which, yeah, it kind of does the same thing, but it doesn't give you that Life Siphon. So, whatever. Definitely a must-have for either counters or pushes. You can definitely push if you want to give out that stability. You don't need to hold on to that. You can definitely flex between either pushing with it or to counter, or a mixture of both. I would also recommend the healing skill, Resilient Weapon. Best triggered when below half health to grant you a better bonus. However, this is a risky play, so I wouldn't lean into that skill too hard. So, I mean, you can still use it, you just won't be given the full benefits. You get more benefits if you're below half health, but to put yourself in a position to be at half health, it's not something you want to do, especially in a Zerg group like that. You get below half health, somebody can clean you up very quickly. Um, some of the utility skills I used Well of Suffering, which just has good AoE damage to add to the mix. Unblockable too, which is nice to punch through enemy defenses. Now, I was running Weapon of Remedy in this run. I probably could have done more DPS using Nightmare Weapon. Remedy is more of a self-cleanse, whereas Nightmare triggers Life Siphon and Vulnerability. Inflicts vulnerability on your targets. I feel as though the slot can be used either way. Whatever you find yourself in need of. If you're comped in a group with good supports, you can run Nightmare or another Well, even. You don't necessarily have to use the Nightmare utility. I wasn't in a comp group, and I wanted some sort of self-sustain, so that's what I ended up going with. For those who don't know, when you're grouped in a squad, there are like a section of like groups of like 1 through 8, for example. And, you know, if we pick out like group 2, anyone in group 2, any boon skills, healing skills, cleanses are prioritized to the players in group 2. Likewise with the other groups. Now, I don't know how other guilds do this, but it seems quite common that anyone in group 1, which is where I was for last night's run, is usually the, and I'm going to put in quotation, the unsorted or extras group, which means you may have a healer or you may not. You may have a boon support or you may not. I've just come to expect this, so I accommodate for where I am in the squad. Just a personal note. Closing thoughts. I'm quite pleased with how well the build ran last night. I did want to plug in that I was using the Relic of Eagle. I feel as though you can change that out with either Fireworks or Thief 2 and still do pretty well. Eagle just gives you a bonus to enemy players who are below 50% health. I think it's a 10% bonus for WvW, which is really good for bombing because it just means you clean up downs quicker. You know, that extra 10% damage, you know, why not? Once again, however, the other relics still provide good effects. Depends on what you build for and how you play. I want to say this again. There's flexibility to this build, both in traits, utility skills, plus weapons. It largely depends on how you play, what Zerg encounters you have, how does your group move, all of that factors in. So play around with what you want to play around with. Overall, this is a banger, and if you're a Necro enjoyer and you haven't tried this out yet, I strongly recommend you give this a try. It's like playing some of the best parts of Reaper and some elements of Scourge into one. It's not a one-to-one likeness, but it's there. Yeah. I just wanted to make a quick little short video, just kind of giving out some first impressional thoughts. I just want to say thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you find this video useful to you. And once again, this is your host Valentine, encouraging you all to say hi to your neighbor, be kind to one another, and that the gospel of Jesus Christ is our only hope for salvation. Till then, I'll see you all later.